So, we're just going to get started here in about 2 or 3 minutes, but I wanted to again, I know I just introduced the few guys that are on here that are going to kind of, help and chime in on this. And then Tim Bloom, I see you're in here as well. You can unmute yourself as well. I know you always have some good feedback. And Erich Pfohl should be on at some point. So Brian Billings has been leading us. He's the head coach at Pacific University in Oregon. He's been leading us through a 5-part hitting workshop, kind of going over movement. Last week we went over the pre-pitch move, which, incorporated some timing, some load, stuff like that. And then this week we're going to go more into the swing portion of this whole thing. Let me see here. Somebody's chatting. If you need me to allow you need to allow me to share my screen. Okay. How do I do that? You should be able to do that, Brian. No?
It says you got to make me a host, I think.
Okay.
It says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay. And so do I have to do that with everybody then?
You go to participants.
I already got you.
Yeah. You go.
Oh, you already have
now.
Yeah, you should be good.
Oh, I'm good now. Okay.
Okay. And then Phil Van Horn's joining us. Like I said before, he's been in the coaching world forever. His son's playing infield in the Giants organization. It got up to AAA last year, I believe. Phil, is that right? And
he's working with Kai now.
Yeah. And
Giants.
Phil has been, I've been working with Phil for years, good friend of mine. Worked on some baseball projects, over the last 10, 15 years or so. He's helped out at Cal State, Northridge, and USC. So a ton of knowledge there. Drew Walsh is our head trainer down at the Legends facility in San Diego. He's done a tremendous job since he moved out here from New York in August. Technically,
late August.
I don't even classify you. I don't even say you moved in August because you moved.
Here we go.
August, and then you went to for a month and a half. So
what would you go for 2 days?
I mean, a month and a half. I probably would have stayed at that point forever.
I wish.
And then we have Tim Bloom. He's been on the past few, actually all of the workshops, I think. And then he coaches at South Torrance High School, and he's a important part of our program over here in California with CBA. For those of you guys that aren't familiar with where Torrance is, it's in the Los Angeles area. For the guys that are out of state, Drew, you're probably not familiar where that's at. It's not about 2 hours north of you. But yeah, so I want to go back to Drew. I don't know if Erich Pfohl is on here yet. If he is, great to have you.
Not yet.
Not yet, because there's a phone number on here, so I wasn't sure if that was him or not. But he will, and he just texted me and said he's having a hard time figuring this out and registering. But let's go ahead and start with Drew. Drew has been kind of taking the lead with the strength and conditioning side for a lot of our CBA guys in Southern California. We've been working together on building a training app to kind of reach to all of our guys within the program and help them figure out how to navigate through this quarantine life and still find ways to get stronger. As soon as these social distancing guidelines are lifted, we're expected to go out and compete, players, that is. So if one thing that I worry about is the safety, especially for arms and pitchers to go out there and throw, however many pitches you're expected to throw. But, you got to take care of your bodies. You got to take care of your arms. Drew has done a good job with their players down in San Diego, and we've had guys over here close to where I'm at that have been able to get after it a little bit. But if you're having a hard time, Drew's a great resource to help with you or your players if there's coaches on here that are looking for that type of resource. So Drew Walsh, appreciate you being on, taking the time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah.
So what's up, everybody? You guys are just logged in. So I played baseball my whole entire life. I played in college, coached in college, and my undergrad and graduate degree is in movement, human performance, strength and conditioning. So I was able to kind of see the game from two different lenses. And I wish that I was able, as a player, I was able to understand how important training, flexibility, mobility, all these things were and their interconnectedness to my performance on the field. and I'm really excited and passionate about what I do because I want to help you guys out and learn from the mistakes that I made in how I trained and prepared for the game. And there's so many things that go into it. And I would love to hear some of your coaches and things that you've been working on in the workshop, but really excited to be out on the West Coast now in such a saturated talent pool of baseball players. And as you guys know that are watching it, you can't just go through the motions and do the bare minimum anymore, okay? The competition is at a level that is going to put pressure on you to perform, or you're going to get left back, or you're not going to be able to calibrate to the next speed. And I think it's by getting into a gym or getting connected to a coach to help you guys learn how your body works, because I'm sure Coach Billings has been talking about the past couple sessions, getting into positions, okay? How to move through positions. So that all starts with your body. For you, the individual, to understand. And that could be, restricted mobility, restricted flexibility, lack of strength, lack of core strength, because all these things affect each other. There's no one part to the human body, all right? If one thing's out of whack, it's going to affect your kinetic chain and it's going to affect your performance. So I would love to hear some questions if you guys have them. If you want to type them in the chat box, or coaches, if you want to probe some questions, maybe more related to hitting, since this is a swing center. I would love to help you guys out any way I can and give you some feedback.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'm going to unmute everybody. Let me see here. Let me go back to this. So if people have, any questions, you can unmute yourself if I haven't got to you yet. But if you have anything, coaches, what I will say is that obviously you need to be strong to hit, right? And compete at higher levels. That's what this comes into. This isn't necessarily for rec. Rec ball or anything like that. But, body performance is so huge. That's why, I kind of dove into this with you a little bit with the facility down in San Diego and dove into the app and all that stuff. But, and for the guys that have been part of baseball at the higher levels, there's a reason why colleges are, everybody has a comprehensive strength program, right? And it's not just about performance, but it's about protecting your bodies. Right. So from the performance standpoint, obviously, the stronger you are, the harder the ball's hit, the further it goes, so that's just, I think that's common sense, but it's so neglected at the younger levels, right? That not only is the performance affected, but it's also the, just the safety of the player given as much baseball as guys play. So I am having a hard time figuring out how to unmute everybody. So if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, that would help me out a lot. If you have any questions, coaches, if you have any questions, Tim, I know you always got something, churning upstairs.
The thing, you nailed it with the younger players.
No shit. So we got.
Go ahead.
And so.
I don't like things.
Unmute yourself if you're not going to talk, or mute yourself.
Well, my thing is, there's a part into it, like I think if we bring like Brock and wanted to, those guys in, all that, but we don't have to you can't. I'm reading more and more.
I figured it out. I couldn't find the chat or turning off the volume because Billings became the host.
Yes, you just unmuted. You just muted everybody.
No, Billings was the host and he muted everybody.
He muted everybody.
Coach, I got a question here from Coach Van Horn.
Yeah.
All right, so everybody. So the question was, what are the basics of hitting movement? What does that mean as you assess and teach hitters? Okay, great question, Coach. Thank you. So what does that mean? We know that as hitters, we are rotational athletes. We need to be really good in the frontal plane, meaning right, left. How well can we transfer power from our back side of the body into our front side of the body. Obviously, hand-eye coordination and tracking that ball in and squaring it up is a huge deal. But it all starts with how we could leverage our lower half. And I'm sure you guys have seen it. The moment you get in the box, right, so many of you hitters, what's the first thing you see hitters do? And they dig their cleats into the ground without even knowing why they do it. And it's just their brains trying to perceive how to get leverage from the ground, because we use the ground to put as much force into it to then have it reciprocated back into our bodies. So this starts the process of energy going into the ground and then coming up. When it comes up, now it's us as movers, as athletes, to harness it as best we can. So coach, and a really quick idea for you guys to have understand a joint by joint approach, right? So starting at the ankles, we need to have mobility of our ankles. Moving a joint above that, our knees have to be stable. Right above our knees, we have our hips, they have to be mobile, okay? Because if we don't have enough mobility in a certain joint that needs to be mobile, we're gonna start compensating either above or below that joint. So really simple. A lot of kids don't even have the ability to level change. And by level change, guys, let me grab my fungo real quick. Level change is just me doing a squat, right? So I'm just level changing down, up. And for me to produce force, I need to level change and use gravity to then start to make an athletic movement. So it starts with a hip hinge, guys. My ability to move through my hips, okay? And not move through my upper back or my lower back, I'm sorry, and leverage. Once I'm able to hip hinge and drive my hips back and then get into an athletic stance, I now have my center of mass and I'm able to transfer weight from my backside to front. So when we assess hitters, not only are we looking at a joint by joint mobility and flexibility standpoint, how well can you get into a level change, just a simple squat? How well can you get into a lunge? Can you get overhead, right? Shoulder health and mobility. But we're also seeing, do they have enough thoracic rotation? Do they have enough hip mobility? Because we know to create velocity, we need to create resistance. So if we're a thrower, whether we're a hitter, whatever it may be, we have to start creating shoulder hip separation, which creates coiling of our core musculature, which is going to allow us to use that energy and create torque. Okay, so that's kind of like a quick observation as we go through. There's a whole analysis that we go through and process a functional movement screen, mobility test, hip special tests that give us feedback as to how this hitter moves well. And as simple as it may be, our feet are really important. How well we could grab onto the floor, because we see so many hitters that aren't able to grasp their backside foot into the ground to then make an athletic move towards the baseball. And you'll see a lot of negative movement. You know, I'm sure you coaches see it a lot. I'm a lefty hitter. If I get here and I just go up and outside of my frame and fall down, I'm not sure how efficient I'm going to be. And I'm not really sure if I actually generated any backside power. That's just me going up and going down and having a lot of eye movement. So really simple flexibility, mobility things, trying to learn how to educate athletes and hitters how to load their backside hip, which is just a simple hip hinge. Sorry if I went off a tangent. Does that answer your question, Coach?
I was giving the 2 thumbs up.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So cool. So that kind of starts there's a lot of things that go into it, like I said, guys, but a simple level change. Can you squat? Okay. We need to be able to dominate that movement to then be able to get out of those movements right, left. Okay. So simple squats. You'll be amazed. We'll go to showcases and camps and see kids that can't just get into a squat position. Well, this is a problem that we need to address. And whether it's an ankle restriction, hip mobility, or just a lack of motor control because no one's taught you how to do it properly. But once we create a good foundation and you know how to squat and level change, then we could start to transfer energy efficiently and then you got to hit a 85 mile per hour moving ball, and that's the coach's job.
That's why Brian's here.
Yes.
No, that was great. And then there was another question for Coach Erich Pfohl, who's the head coach at Hope International University. He's been on the last few weeks as well, but couldn't for the second week in a row. Has had troubleshooting problems.
I'm trying to keep up with Bills. He's at that no, I'm teasing. I'm technologically impaired, which is why my answer to that question probably a little more simplistic than certainly than what Drew just went into, and maybe some others. But the question was kind of what are we looking for in movement patterns, so to speak, in videos we receive from high school students. And for me, I think I try and base it on like a sliding scale, so to speak, similar to what you do with your SATs and your GPAs when you're getting into college. But for us, I'm a big guy on barrel control. I think when you see a guy that has the ability to put the barrel on the baseball at a young age, maybe they're not strong, maybe they can't drive the ball into the gaps yet, but that ability, I think, is just something that's innate, that it's good hand-eye, it's whatever it might be. So watching a guy and seeing the repeatability that he might have to that, and then just trusting that our strength process and his natural physical maturity as time goes on is going to add the strength that's going to allow those balls to kind of start splitting gaps and potentially going over fences. The sliding scale version of that, for me is a guy maybe that maybe he's got a little more swing and miss, not as much of the contact, but what we've got to be able to project on then is stuff like exit velocity, and is the ball really jumping off his bat, where maybe we will take a little more swing and miss with that guy versus the guy that's not very strong yet. And say, hopefully over time with some vision training and different things that we might do, maybe he's gonna get a little bit more, and he's a guy that you could potentially plug into the middle of the order down as time goes on. So I those would be some basics. Again, I think with the barrel control, you start to see guys looseness, and I think that's just a pretty vague word, obviously. But, I watch guys, and some of the better hitters I've ever been around, they're guys that you rarely see their whole hand on the bat at one time. It doesn't mean that you can't have your whole hand on the bat at one time and be a good hitter. It's just, some of the things that I've noticed with that, those guys they're moving their fingers all the time. And those guys, they just seem overly confident. There's not too many max effort swings until they're in leverage counts. And, the more you start evaluating hitters, I think the more comfortable you get seeing what type of guys they are and if they're going to fit into the system. So, I think for us, certainly there's some data points that we'll collect and be interested in. But, for me in a video, especially without going to see a game and any of that type of stuff, I'm really just looking for athletic movements and repeatability. And then from there, we'll bring the other variables in where maybe those boxes aren't checked.
Awesome. I think that was great. Phil, does that answer your question? All right. So, I just wanted to
I only got one thumbs up.
Yeah, you only got one.
I've known you way too long, Coach. You get two thumbs up, and you know that. We've known each other for a long, long time. Maybe 15 years. Is that right?
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Maybe longer than that.
Got to see your son grow up and kick our butts for a couple of years too. So.
Awesome. So and I do want to go back to Drew for a little bit because he's got to get going. So if there are any questions, coaches, if you guys have anything, especially the guys that aren't here locally to Southern California, if you're with Vic's crew over in Orlando, or any of the other areas, would love to, see what you guys think about this, and would love to, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them out. Cause is
there any way that if we need to kind of bounce a couple things out from you with you, Drew, is that all right if we can get contact info?
Absolutely. So, Coach, are you one of the coaches, sir?
Yeah,
yes.
he runs the Orlando chapter, so to speak.
I'm on the other side of the I'm on the down under.
I used to be over on the east on the East Coast, but yes, so for sure, Coach, reach out. I'll help you out any way I can. Like Coach Joe just mentioned, we're super pumped about the app, the Legends app that's just dropping, and it gives us a reach ability. Okay, we're able to, if you can't come, you don't live a couple minutes away from the facility, it's just like you have access on your phone, and there's a lot of capabilities with this app where we could kind of go any way you need with it, whether it's hitting, pitching, strength and conditioning, assessment. So you can send us videos. We can watch your overhead squat movement patterns and see where we may see roadblocks for you in your performance journey.
Sounds good. Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Coach.
Guys.
Thanks.
So we can send Drew back to his day.
Thanks, Drew.
Awesome.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Really good stuff.
See you, buddy.
Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Awesome. See you. Thanks, Drew.
Please.
All right. And so going back into the hitting portion of this, you know, we're in workshop 3 of 5 for Coach Billings' presentation. Appreciate him taking the time. I know he's got other stuff that he could be doing, but he chooses to be here with us. And so just really thankful for him to do this for us, and obviously Coach Pfohl as well being there to kind of throw in his 2 cents as well. So thanks, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Pleasure.
Can Billings hear me?
I'm in.
You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
You ready?
All right. Share my screen here. PowerPoint number 3. Oops. So for those of you that were on the call last week, we went over stance, pre-pitch move, and launch position. So basically, you know, getting ready to hit, putting yourself in a position to hit. Today we're gonna jump right into the swing phase and go over some concepts, barrel depth, attack angle, and but again, if anybody has any questions, please just unmute yourselves and just start asking. I'm just gonna roll right into this, but couple things to review here from last week. Launch position. It's a position there is in when the front foot is fully planted. So after the forward move, front foot lands. When that front foot gets fully planted, then that's launch position. And there's some important checkpoints to look at. And again, this is just review from last week, but flexion in the front knee for adjustability. The rear elbow should be slotted. Hybrid barrel, okay, not horizontal, not vertical, but in the middle, about 45-degree angle. And then early connection, you want to be connected at launch, and the next slide will kind of show you what that looks like. Some common flaws, a little bit of a barrel wrap, maybe a high elbow, and then early hip extension. Okay, so those are some things to look for, and some flaws, as well as shoulders uphill instead of level or downhill, and early side bend, okay, where your barrel starts to dump and work away from your body too early. Okay, so those are some things to look for, and then this is what connection looks like, right? This is a pretty good connected swing. And you can see how his pelvis, his torso, his lead arm, his long lever of his lead arm, and his bottom hand are all rotating at the same speed, and then decelerating in order, okay? So if you're connected, you're going to maximize bat speed. You're going to have a good, typically you're going to have a good attack angle, and you're going to have some adjustability within that as well. Swing phase. Okay, so as we move into the swing phase, we're going to define that as it begins at front foot plant and ends at impact with the ball. Okay, so good connection, like I said before, is a precursor to proper sequencing up the kinetic chain. So the more connected we could be at the beginning of our swing, the better we're going to sequence up the chain. Kinetic link principle. Okay, this is something I've learned recently, and it kind of really helped me understand the way the body should move during the swing. But the principle is that the body segments generate high endpoint velocity by accelerating and decelerating adjacent links. using internal and external muscle torques applied to the body segments in a sequential manner, from proximal to distal, from massive to least massive, and from most fixed to most free. So your pelvis, your torso, lead arm, your long lever of your lead arm, and then your hand. So working away from your body as it works through the ball. So here, if you haven't seen this right here, I could watch this for the next hour. But this is basically, this is a drive line. I don't know if you're familiar with drive line, but they do a lot of stuff with K-Vest and with biomechanics and stuff like that to look at what the body's doing. But you can see here that the pelvis, when it starts to accelerate, it'll turn green. And then it'll go to the torso, and then the lead arm, and then the hand. And then it decelerates. So the torso, lead arm, long lever, and the hand are connected and traveling at the same rotational speed at the beginning of the swing. And they decelerate in order from near to far, so proximal to distal. So torso decelerates, then the lead arm decelerates, then the hand decelerates. And the pelvis initiates this process. So going back to what Drew was talking about earlier, you can kind of see why your lower half is super important. Okay, you got to have strong legs. You got to have, a strong core to be able to drive your upper body, because essentially your legs and your pelvis is driving what your torso, lead arm, and hand are all doing. Okay, so we got to be strong in our legs, we got to be strong in our core, and we got to be mobile in our hips and our thoracic spine, like Drew was talking about earlier. Like I said, I mean, I could look at this thing for hours. You can really see how the swing works with the way it breaks down. And here, this is another great visual. This is also a driveline video, but so pelvis accelerates and decelerates, torso accelerates and decelerates, then the arm decelerates, and then the hand. So it works out through the ball, and it all starts with that lower half. Erich, you got anything so far?
No, listen, I love what it is. And I think, we've not gotten into the,
Can't hear you, man. Can you guys hear him?
No.
I hit myself. Sorry about that. I said I'm all on board with what you're saying. I think it's awesome, and I think just trying to give another perspective to it, guys, from like just a more layman's term for us. We haven't gotten into the technology side of it yet with our program, but we simplify it, and it's exactly the same concepts. It's we tell our guys, you got to work from the ground up and backside to front side, and it's just as simple as that as well. So those points, I don't want to discredit them. They're 100% right, and I believe in them, and we try and teach them the best we can. But for if you're struggling to understand that, I think it's important that you ask, what does that mean? What does it mean when we're talking about, the proximal, the distal, and getting the torso involved? And so, again, for us, we try and simplify it with our guys. Namely, if you look at our GPAs, you'd see why. But simple as ground up and back to front sometimes, is what we're working on. But I'm on to what you're doing.
Cool. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Keep it simple. I think my goal with this is to show you guys what's actually happening in the swing. Yep. And then we'll reverse engineer how to coach it. You know what I mean? Because I think part of this is to understand what a good swing should look like, and what a bad swing looks like, and what's going wrong with the swing, and then how to fix it. So talking about decelerating the lead arm is probably not the right way to fix a hitter's swing. But there might be a drill that you can prescribe, or a way of saying it that's a lot simpler than this. But I think it's important for especially for coaches to understand how everything works together, so that they can translate that for their student athletes and make it simple and easy. So
it's important to go over with your players too. I'm sure you do with your guys, right? Break down the in depth, and then we can quote unquote dumb it down, later as we need to, right?
absolutely. Any questions so far, guys? All right. Moving forward, so the hip and the torso, the pelvis or hip and torso separation, that starts the kinetic chain, okay? So we do a lot of drills to build the engine. Obviously, leg and core strength is super important. Mobility in the hips and the torso is really important. We have a lot of our guys come into our program and they don't have a lot of separation. You know, they're 4 to 10 degrees of separation to start, but through work, strengthening in the weight room, and then work on mobility, we've seen our guys get up to somewhere anywhere between 30 and 35, 40 degrees of separation. So it's possible, and it's something that you should definitely work on, I think, when you're 14, 15, all the way up into college. So just some other visuals of, you're going to rotate into foot strike, okay? We don't want to land and then stop. You want, as that heel lands, that's when the rotation should begin. So if there's a big gap between foot strike and rotation, you're not maximizing that kinetic chain there.
Brian, I came up with a lot of the Don Slott Right View Pro stuff, and I know he talked about once you get into heel plant, the forward move is done. Is it still supported that way, where the forward move is done and the swing becomes a little more rotational at that point? Yeah,
absolutely. Yep. I mean, we try to allow for some adjustability, like if you're a little bit out front, maybe a little bit of a scissor kick to adjust. Sure. But yeah, more than anything, we want, when that front foot lands, your head's not going to move forward too much after that. So you want your head to stay behind the ball, working around an axis, and you want to maintain that posture. This is a great visual here of Trout keeping his head still, and some of the benefits of that, it's going to improve your vision. Because if your eyes are moving and the ball's moving and you got to hit a round ball with a round bat square, it's not easy to do. So you want to keep those eyes steady and so you can see the baseball. And that's also going to help your sequencing up the chain. And it also will help you stay on the ball out front. The next one here, you'll see Nolan Arenado. He's one of the best at keeping his head still. And look at how it allows him to use the whole field. Drive the ball to all fields because he's not allowing his head to pull off. One of the best cues, I think, for me is you'll see some hitters that maybe lack that core strength, or it might be mobility related, but they tend to come out of their legs in their swing. They allow their head to kind of come up when they start their swing. So I really like this cue of swinging around a steel rod. I think it keeps you in your legs, and it allows that kinetic chain to work for you. And you can see here Lindor. I think that's Lindor down bottom left. Swinging around that steel rod. This is also, I know Joe, last session, I think it was, he asked about high pitch posture. And sorry, Joe texted me here. He asked about high pitch posture, and this is a good visual of what high pitch posture should look like. So see how is this angle here? It's about a 25, 30 degree angle. That's a good high pitch posture right there. You don't want to be straight up and down, but a good forward bend at foot strike is what you want to see there. So barrel depth. So a connected swing will allow for the barrel to get on plane early. And we want the barrel to get on plane deep and early in the zone. And it should work underneath our back shoulder, as you can see. Proper barrel depth, like I said, is a byproduct of a connected turn. Torso, lead arm, and lead hand are all turning together, and then they decelerate through the ball. Barrel, and then this is a big one right here, is the barrel will move slightly away from the body, producing an arc. So you can see the barrel actually moves that way, Nick, and gets on playing deep in the zone. And that's a real new, relative to the history of the game. It's a relatively new concept. About 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was all about barrel straight to the ball. And so you got a lot of people that were teaching, just barrel straight at, the easiest path to the ball is a straight line, right? So they were teaching like really direct swings, and hitters had really steep swings. And now, they're teaching a more of an elliptical swing, and you're seeing much better barrel depth and a bigger margin for error. So here's one of my hitters here, bottom left, bottom right. Has got really good barrel depth. He kind of pulls off the ball early, and then Bregman has excellent barrel depth. Couple more visuals of this. Now you can't tell me these guys are swinging down to the ball. I mean, they're swinging up to the ball, right? And Nolan Arenado, he's on playing super early. Back here, same thing with Chris Bryant. Anything to add, Eric?
Nope.
Okay. Gabby Sanchez, really good barrel depth. I like this. This is a driveline video here.
Coach, can you explain barrel depth a little bit more?
Yeah, so you want your barrel working up early, okay? You want your barrel getting on plane with the pitch and working up through the ball early. A lot of people that have swings that are more down to the ball, their barrel won't be working up until somewhere out front. So if they're beat, in other words, if they're late on a pitch and the ball's getting on them, the only thing is manipulate their body to try to rush the barrel, and so they spin and try to rush the top hand to catch up, or they just hit the top of the ball and they hit a ground ball, or they clip the ball and they clip the front side of the ball, and they'll hit a real high spin rate fly ball that won't go anywhere because the ball it creates drag and the ball hangs up to the outfielders.
Got it.
So if we can get our barrel working on plane early, okay, then that's going to allow us to have a direct collision with the baseball. And so we're going to tend to have our best exit velos are going to be at the launch angles that we want them to be at. So we're going to hit, balls super hard at like a 15 to 25 degree launch angle. Versus if I'm swinging down to the ball and I don't have very good barrel depth, I'm going to clip the ball. It's not going to be a direct collision, and the ball is going to hang up because it's got really high spin rate. So we'll get into some of the data and how to look at that on the blast sensor. But the biggest thing is, getting that barrel working on plane early, and working up through the ball early. So, and it's got to be a byproduct of a connected turn. It can't be something that you manipulate with the hands and just get kind of handsy and dump the barrel trying to get underneath it, It's got to be part of that turn. Does that answer your question, Coach?
That does, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Is that how you would explain it, Eric?
Yeah. I think another term I think that you've heard for years and years, lag, right? Bat lag, and similar type things is getting the barrel on what plane is going to be in your mind, and trying to stay through that plane for as long as you possibly can to, like you said, maximize the margin for error.
Absolutely. So this is that depth ladder drill that I talked about last week and we touched on. So, you know, again, this is one of my favorite staple drills that we do all the time. And you just climb the ladder. You swing at the deepest one. You swing at the middle, and you don't move your feet. You stay in the same spot, but you try to hit the deepest one in the air. Then you hit the middle one in the air, and then you hit the one out front, and then you work back to middle, and then you work back to the deepest one. And you just gotta, you know, we use different weighted implements. Right here, he's swinging a long bat. We have a short bat that we use as well that forces hitters to stay connected with it. But I really recommend this drill. And the teach on this drill is to not necessarily think I'm going to pull the ball out front and I'm going to hit the deep one the other way. Okay, that's not the teach. The teach is, it doesn't matter really where the ball goes as long as you hit the ball in the air. Okay, we want to make sure that that ball is anywhere from like a 5 to a 25-degree launch angle. So we actually have you can't see it on this, but there's a wire on this big net that we use that's kind of so there's 2 wires and you're supposed to kind of stay between the wires. You know, we don't want ground balls and we also don't want, you know, fly balls that aren't going to go anywhere. But highly recommend this drill. Love it for a lot of reasons. So barrel depth kind of leads into the concept of attack angle, which is one of the blast sensor metrics that I know we look, probably the 2 that we look at the most are attack angle or average attack angle and bat speed. So, and then early connection and connection at impact are probably right up there as well. But attack angle is probably one of the biggest ones. If you can fix somebody's attack angle, it can be a game changer, because now they're getting better exit velos at the launch angles that we want to see those. But the pitches are coming into the hitting zone, traveling between a -4 degree to a -12-degree angle relative to horizontal. So they're coming down, you know, at a negative or at a 4 degree, 4 to 12 degree downward angle. And so as a hitter, we want to match that plane early, and we want to the angle of the bat path at impact relative to horizontal should be a positive value that indicates that we're swinging up through the ball. So a negative value would indicate swinging down, whereas 0 is swinging level. So now with that in mind, it's important that you understand that when tracking attack angle, it's a range. So you want to be somewhere between like 0 and 15 with your attack angle if you're looking at any one swing. But if you're looking at assessing your swing in generally, I think you look more at average attack angle, because your attack angle is going to be somewhat dependent on your timing and the location of the pitch. Because a pitch that's down that you're a little bit out front of, okay, you're going to have a really high attack angle. It's probably going to be like 20 to 25 degrees. But a pitch that's up maybe and gets on you a little bit, you know, your attack angle will be 0 or 0 even. It might be -4 or -6. So by averaging all those out, we get a picture of, you know, how is this kid in terms of, you know, his attack angle and being on plane with the pitch. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So we want swings that are slightly uphill. Goal is to have an attack angle that is somewhere between 6 and 20 degrees. An average attack angle around 8 is what we're looking for. And again, matching plane will create the direct collision, which will maximize exit velos. Does that make sense? Like if I hit the ball on the same plane that it's coming in, that's going to create a greater exit velo than if I clip the ball like this. Okay, so that direct collision is a pretty important thing. And there's actually there's a myth about backspin that we want to create backspin. And while that's true, there's a point of diminishing returns, right? If we create too much backspin because we're clipping the ball too much, ball's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to hang up for outfielders to run down and catch. So what they're finding is that the farthest hit balls, the balls that are going upwards of 500 feet, those balls actually have a looser backspin, okay? So it's like, I think the cutoff is like 3,000 revolutions per minute. If it's under 3,000, okay, that's going to allow the ball to really have some good carry. Yeah, and I kind of skipped over it, but you can actually have a swing that's too uphill as well. It's a lot more rare. We usually see kids that are too downhill, but you might get some kids that have an average attack angle that's 15. Okay, and a lot of times what that would indicate to me is that it's probably a guy with a vertical barrel, okay, who's gonna get a little bit of early side bend there because of the vertical barrel, and so then his barrel's a little bit more elliptical, and it loses that snap and that kinetic whip out front. But this is what it's going to produce if you're late. You're probably or early, you're not going to see like direct impact with the ball. You're going to see some rollovers pull side and some flares the other way. So like I said before, matching the plane can be a game changer. Helps getting the ball in the air more, maximizes exit speeds at ideal launch angles. Hitting the ball to all fields with consistent launch angles and consistent exit speeds is another benefit. If my barrel's on plane early, I can hit the ball deep pull side or deep the other way. Same thing out front, okay? It just gives me a lot of ability to use the whole field. And it allows for adjustment with timing and movement. I mentioned looser backspin, and then you can commit to swinging later and still hit the ball in the air. So this is actually a graphic from Ted Williams' The Science of Hitting, which is one of those timeless books that all hitting coaches should read, or all hitters should read. But this is a really, really good graphic, and he was ahead of his time, obviously. Hit 408 in a season, so pretty good hitter. Another good visual of bat path. So you can see the barrel depth there, coach. Getting on plane early, and right back here, he's on plane working up through the ball out front. And then that leads into wrist timing. Proper wrist timing, the last link in the kinetic chain. This is why the highest exit velos and the farthest batted balls are going to be pull side, is because the barrel is going to kick in out front. And as long as we do it the right way, we don't roll the wrist, but we kind of snap the wrist like we're casting a fishing rod. That allows that barrel to work through the ball out front, and you're going to see some pretty good exit velos and hard hit balls pull side because of that. So hitters should maintain lag in the wrist at the beginning of the torso rotation, and then the wrist unhinge and accelerates through the ball through contact. So like I said, you want to snap the wrist, not roll it. You want to cast like you're casting a fishing rod. Proper loading, timing of the wrist allow for a maximum energy transfer from the body to the bat. So here's a couple still shots of what that might look like, but you can see the barrels kind of kicking in out front. Coach, you got anything on wrist stuff, Eric?
No, I think you hit it. We see it a lot with our guys, and it's guys rushing to try and get the barrel around to the baseball, and that's probably the least counterproductive, the least productive thing you can do is turn the barrel over to get to the ball, and it's probably a male ego-driven trait that we have, that we want to try and barrel it up rather than just maintaining posture, maintaining your hands through the ball. You're going to actually probably deliver more force if your timing's one way or the other than trying to get the barrel to it. So I think it's one of those things, it's simple, guys, to just grab a one-hand bat and, kind of get a feel for what that is before you do anything. Maybe not every day, but, every couple of days, just to kind of make sure that it's there. Cause I think you're right. I mean, that's the extension of your hands, right? It's the last thing to give you, you can hide a lot of flaws if you got good timing with that.
Absolutely. So these are, I showed you guys this clip last week, but some common flaws would be, drifting. Center of mass continues to move linearly after foot plant. Hitter can't stay behind the ball. So that's what Erich was talking about earlier. When you get to foot plant and you just continue to drift forward. You want to, like we said earlier, you want to swing around a steel rod. So losing posture, the hitter stands upright when rotating. Okay, you got to stay kind of in your back heel and work, swing around that steel rod. Disconnection, hands drag behind or push away from the body before torso rotation. And then, like Erich was saying, early wrist unhinge. So, guys trying to create power with rolling the wrist. That's dumping the barrel right there. Yep. So when you dump the barrel, you're using the last link of the chain too early. And it causes swing to be very, very torso dominant and long. And the result is a spinny, unadjustable groove swing with no power. So that's what happens when the barrel works like that. Anything else to add to the swing flaws, Coach?
No, I liked it. I think if I spun off on a small tangent, I think you could probably back and probably expand even a little bit more. But I think just the focus of, what you guys are working on with your training. And, he gave you 3 to 4 very good points from attack angle to exit velo to wrist, wrist unhinge, and all of those correlate to each other. So trying to focus on all 3 of those during one swing path or one hitting session, probably not going to give you the best result, and if you say, okay, today I'm going to really gather my averages of exit velos, and if there's a spread from 80 to 96, there's an issue there, and then maybe next day or week or whatever it's going to be, then you focus on the next, and just trying to make sure that you're not trying to do all of those at one time. And I'm really happy that, I'm usually the minority that talks about not backspinning baseballs or not focusing on it, at least. So I'm glad to hear you say it, because man, that's hard to do. That's just a byproduct of where you hit the ball, and, good for you if you do it. But I think just, for me, it's just focus of that swing flaw, the focus of where it is. So. Yeah,
I gotta do one thing at a time. You can't have all these different cues in your mind. And again, trying to go through the swing and teach you guys the swing, or what I think it should look like, my view on it, doesn't mean that you should start throwing out all these internal cues to your hitters. Let them figure it out. But I mean, you're their shepherd. You're gonna guide them in the direction that you want them to go. And give them the drills that they need to be successful. So, but yeah, I hope I'm not throwing too many concepts out there. That's for sure.
Oh, what's good about
it's good.
And what's good about this, Bills, is that we are recording these too. So if there's a lot of information, like, they can go back and look at these if they really want to, just to kind of recap. So
cool. And then that leads us into impact position. So the moment the hitter makes contact with the ball is what we would define that as. So some checkpoints on that. We want to see mostly, if not completely, unweighted back leg. Okay, so a lot of times if they're heavy on that back foot, it's going to cause some issues with posture and bat path. And then we want to be palm up, palm down at contact. So you can see Miggy's top hand is palm up and his bottom hand is palm down. And we want to work through that. And going back to Nolan Arenado, that's one thing he really does well, by keeping his head down. It allows his barrel to stay palm up, palm down, or his hands to stay palm up, palm down. Keeps his barrel working through the ball and really maximizes his on plane percentage there out front. So some common flaws would be early top hand pronation. So the wrist kind of unhinging early. And then we mentioned hanging back on the back leg or overweighted back leg, which creates issues with posture and bat path. So we talked about connection at launch, early connection. This is a connection at impact, okay? Measures the relationship between the hitter's body tilt, spine angle, and the vertical bat angle in degrees. So we want that also to be close to 90, okay? Ideally, this relationship is approximately perpendicular, which I just mentioned. And connection at impact measures this relationship at contact. So that's this is a byproduct. This is a byproduct of doing a lot of other things right, right? If you're connected at launch, and your barrel depth is part of your turn, okay, then you're going to find that you're going to be right around 90 degrees at impact. What does it look like? We'll go over some adjustments here, but so this is top down adjustment. So there's different ways that hitters adjust to the low pitch. Okay, this is Alonso. You can see the one on the right is the high pitch, and then you'll see a little bit of side bend to get to that low pitch. Okay, the other way of doing this would be like to sink into your legs, and I'll show you what that would look like. Here's Trout though. Trout's the best at side bend in the world. It's one of the reasons why he's such a great low ball hitter. But you'll see his posture on the high pitch or the thigh high fastball, and then how he gets down and stays connected on the low pitch. Erich, do you have any good drills on how to work on this? How to work on side bend?
I don't know. I think we've talked about it. I think Carlos mentioned it about just moving the tee around and varying the heights. And,
yeah.
I think at that point it's easy to do that, but the focus, what that focus goes to. And we just try and keep our guys up the middle so that the swing is conceptually constant, at least.
Yeah.
But
I was going to say, Bill's like, look where this ball's being caught at too, where the catcher's going to receive this pitch.
Yeah.
And like, that's unreal for him to, last week we talked about.
That's a homer.
Yeah. And like how we were talking about last week, you want to, we're kind of working on attacking that pitch up in the zone, but being able to react down like he's doing here, this is unreal. Like there's not many guys, regardless of how much you work on this, that's going to be able to do this. So
you can see like this graphic right here, they tilted the camera and it looks like a normal swing. But look at the one on the left.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The catcher's going to pick that out of the dirt. Unreal. So he's pretty good at side bend. And then this is like Bellinger demonstrating another way to get to the low pitch, sinking into the legs.
He's okay.
He's all right.
And I think what's good about this, like sinking into the legs as opposed to side bend, is it keeps your bat plane more consistent as opposed to drop, you know what I mean? And so by sinking your legs, you keep your posture a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you attack the ball doesn't necessarily, that angle doesn't change, more so just the depth of, how you're swinging the bat changes.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for me is, allow your hitter to do what his body wants to do. You know what I mean? As we move forward here, you'll see some pretty crazy swings, some athletic adjustments, but we got guys going down to one knee. We got a little bit of a scissor kick here, trying to stay on the ball out front. You'll see the rear leg kicked back, and that allows the hitter to keep the barrel on the baseball out front. You can see that both these hitters are caught out front, and they kick that leg out and hang on.
Bills, I guess now that we're talking about it, I don't know that we intended it to be that drill specifically, but we'll do BP probably once a week, maybe, where it's like a hit and run. Essentially, you're swinging no matter what, and the way you stay in the cage is the ball hits the fence in the outfield. Doesn't matter if it's on the ground or in the air or on a fly, but that forces you to really work to try and stay through that ball and deliver some impact. And I guess that might not be something that couldn't hurt for something along those lines as well too.
Yeah, for training adjustability. For training, yeah.
Yep.
I like it. But you could see there's a lot of hitters that go down to a knee. It's crazy. And I think the more vertical your barrel is, the more you're going to see that a little bit too. You got Acuna, who's super vertical barrel. He's one of the most vertical hitters. Let's see. I think here's Jock Peter. Oh, that's it. All right. Last slide. That's all I got.
No, that's great.
So.
No, I think as this all sequences together, each workshop, you can see how they all, especially if guys do take the time to go back to the website to see them in order. I know they're about an hour long, but if you go back to the website and see them in order, you'll see how it all works together in sequence, and how you guys can use, whether it's the data from Blast or just use the sensor to kind of figure out what you're doing with your swing. It does take time to learn something new, so if you're not getting it the first time, that is why we're recording these and putting them back, on the website so you can check them out later on. And coaches too, if you're working with hitters, and this stuff intrigues you and it's something you want to run with, go back and take a look and study it. And if you have any questions, obviously feel free to ask them here, but next week, if something comes to mind, go ahead and come with those questions ready to ask them, because this is what this is for. So. Yeah.
And the next week we'll go over, some drill ideas. No, that's week 5. Next week is, the constraint-led approach and understanding the data. So I think as we, go through the mechanics of the swing, we've talked a lot about the data. We've talked about early connection. We've talked about connection to impact, bat speed. We'll get into more attack angle. So I think, hopefully you guys are getting a good idea of, the data and also what it should look like. So, coaches can prescribe good drills and programming to clean up some of that stuff.
I'd like to see some drills on bat path, like what you guys work on to create a really good bat path for your hitter.
Okay. Definitely.
I feel like at the high school level, it's really important, because that's something that I work on with my hitters all the time, because we see some pretty interesting bat paths.
Mm-hmm. One of the best drills for me is that we call it top hand isobat, and JD Martinez made it popular. But I can show you that real quick. And I think, sorry guys.
Well, he's finding that, Tim. One we do a lot, we just call it a forward tee, but we'll put a tee where you generally would, just right off your front foot, and almost a full replace of your feet backwards, a step, so your front foot goes to where your back foot was. And from there, the focus is really working to try and keep that baseball to the back part of the net in the cage, right up the middle. And I think that really forces guys to get their hands. You'll start to see some guys leak and get a little cheaty with the front side to do that. But, the guys that really do stay connected throughout their swing, they'll really start to drive that ball up the middle instead of hooking it around to the pull side or lagging the barrel inside of it way too long to force that. So, again, it's not quite a full return step back, just depends on the guy's stance and where he's at. But, putting that tee way out in front and really making him try and get that ball up the middle is a good one, I think, to get that barrel going straight through it.
What's the height of the tee when you do that drill, Coach?
We try and keep it up a little bit. So we're probably going just above the belt line there. And that'll force, again, at least the focus is more on the hands rather than trying to square the baseball up. Inherently, that's what we want to do and deliver impact. And that's hard to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yep.
Okay. This is one drill that we do. And this is a big one, top hand iso bat. I think when you talk about, your hands and just how they work, I think if your bottom hand is dominating your swing, you're going to tend to be real down to the ball, right? So I think it's more about top hand, right? It's more about getting that top hand and getting that turn right so that your barrel gets on plane early, and then it tends to stay on plane out front. But you can see with JD here, like he's on plane like behind him, and then he's working through the ball. And what we tell our guys is don't commit the barrel on this drill. We're not trying to roll through the ball. And you can see out front, he kind of casts like he's casting a fishing rod. He doesn't roll off the ball.
His top hand kind of stays palm up all the way through too.
Yeah.
He never really does a full roll.
He doesn't roll.
So this is a great one, and you got to get the right bat, because if it's too heavy, their mechanics can really break down. So you want to find a light enough bat to where they can really The other one is that's good is like, have you seen those chuckets that you can take one of those chuckets and you can throw a ball for your dog? Have you seen those?
Right.
Yeah, it's a really good drill, and it's the same aspect. You're just doing it with a chucket instead of a short bat.
And I want to point something out too. If you can see JD Martinez as he uses his top hand and stays on plane. So going back to Tim's question about hand path, like this keeps you on plane longer, especially if you can see how his back foot travels along, and it kind of rotates along there, but you don't have to necessarily rotate. But that back foot that back hip as it comes through, where he's allowing himself to kind of rotate, that keeps you on plane with the top hand longer. So I'm 100% in agreement with Coach Billings and how he says, that it's more top hand. Your swing, the power that you develop once your top hand, disengages, you lose your power, right? But your top hand and your back leg and your back hip, right, it's all connected. So that kinetic chain works through your back side all the way through, through your leg, through your hips, your torso, and your arms and back into the barrel. So if you're being, kind of lazy with that back leg per se during the swing, your bat plane's going to kind of go out the window too. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I really like that depth ladder drill that I showed you last couple weeks. That's a good one for being on plane.
Oh, that's coming into the repertoire for sure, Coach.
Awesome
voice.
We'll have more stuff on the fifth session there too. More drills and ideas. There's some really good ones for the pre-pitch move as well. That'll help get that stretch feel. So that, because if you get that stretch right and you get timing with your lower half, a lot of times the kinetic chain takes care of itself a lot easier. You know what I mean? You don't have to try to manufacture the right mechanics. So a lot of it, going back to the second or the first session, if we could get our pre-pitch move down on time and do it the right way, like a lot of times your swing will just kind of take care of itself from there.
Let's bring in some drills for that too.
Cool.
There's
Good stuff.
All right, so that's pretty much, we're kind of closing in on our time there. If you guys have any last questions or comments that you guys want to chime in on, now's the time.
Thank you, Coach Billings. That was excellent. Thank
Thanks,
you
Bill.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you. I think sounds like you should be the one doing this though, with all those autographed balls behind you.
No. Love to learn, and never enough, right? We're always learning from each other, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
So much.
That's it's been great. And Bills, you're the host now, so whenever we're ready, you can go ahead.
Okay.
But I appreciate all you guys taking the time. It's for the players, it's in your best interest to take this time, and the coaches, you guys are just doing a service for your guys, and it's for the majority of you guys being a part of CBA, us getting on the same page with as much philosophy and ideas on the field as we can. It just fortifies what we're trying to do, and it also just makes us a little bit better individually. So thank you all. All right.
Excuse me, Coach.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask. Last week you were talking about when we were getting the load in for the timing and
who's that?
And how that's going to correlate with the connection. I wanted to ask if the pitcher saw that in
Can
the
you
bat,
repeat the question?
react to it. Oh, sorry. Last week you mentioned the bat angles when they were loading to connect and stride. And I was wondering if a pitcher saw that, would they adjust to the batter or stay the same?
We look for that. So if we're doing a scouting report and we see a hitter with a super horizontal barrel, we're gonna throw that hitter down in the zone.
Okay.
If we see a hitter with a super vertical barrel, we're gonna pitch up in the zone. So Absolutely, I think at the next level, coaches look at that sort of thing, but it's not a pitch to pitch thing. It's more of a scouting report situation where they'll go into a series with the idea that we're gonna attack a hitter a certain way, based on their what they can handle in the zone. So what you want to do as a young hitter, is be matchup proof. You know what I mean? You want to be matchup proof. Yeah. So if you can get to a point where you can not be too extreme, and there's exceptions, man. Like Ronald Acuna has a super vertical barrel, right? And he's okay. He's an okay hitter. So I think it's just we're not all Ronald Acuna, so we have to be able to understand that we're a little bit more limited athletically. We've got to be able to make ourselves matchup proof if we can. So that's my answer. I don't know if you have anything more, Eric.
No, I love that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, guys.
All right.
I guess I am the host again, but thank you all, and I'll see you guys next week. Coach Bill, see you next week.
See you, Eric. See you guys.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Good say, guys.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great night.
Joe,
Thank
I'll
you.
take care of that for you, Joe.
I see you.
All right, man.
Bye.
Thank you, coaches. All right, take care.